I am Ningguang, Tianshin of Qixing. You wish to trade? You be my personal bodyguard, and I will show you how to get ahead in Liyue.
This is Ningguang. So as usual, you guys tend to surprise me, and I put Bennett in this most recent poll, and out of 42,000 votes, he only got 25%. Ningguang got a whopping 48%, so obviously you guys care more about this waifu than your boy Bennett. Ningguang is a very interesting setup in terms of her kit and her character. Let's go ahead and jump into this. Really quickly, before we actually do that, just remember that if you guys want to help support me, there are channel memberships. There's actually merch linked right down below. Don't feel pressured to do any of that. Just if you like to support people, it's there, but again, don't feel pressured. Also, today is officially January 1st, and with that being said, we need a new goal. What do we want to do? I guess the next big goal is going to be 25,000, but we're almost there already. We're at like 23,000 or something subs. So let's say 50,000. God, that number is really big. I don't know if that's possible. Let's just shoot for it. Let's say 50K before my birthday, which is April. So Ningguang is actually one of the 4-star characters that you could actually end up going DPS or support, and I think you can kind of get a lot of benefit out of either side. Personally, I have chosen to go with DPS. I feel like she is funner to play as a DPS, and she can do some pretty nutty things. Before we get into like the meat and potatoes of everything, I will let you know there is going to be a couple of links down in the description. One is to the Ningguang mains Discord. I'm going to start linking those in descriptions, and I'm going to try to go back and link all of the ones that I've already done so far for each video, because I think those are very bountiful in their information. So I'm going to be referencing a few things from there, and there's going to be another reference spreadsheet that I always tend to reference down in the description as well if you're at all interested in that information, because I can't go through all of it in this one single video. But on to Ningguang. Let's take a look, and let's start with her talents. So we do have our normal attack, which is called Sparkling Scatter. So our normal attack, since we are a Catalyst user, is going to deal straight up Geo damage. It's basically just going to shoot some Geo gems at the opponent, and upon hitting, it grants her 1 Star Jade. Okay, we'll get into Star Jades in a minute. Our charge attack consumes a certain amount of stamina to fire off a giant gem that deals Geo damage, and if she has any Star Jades, unleashing a charge attack will cause the Star Jade to be fired at the enemy as well, dealing additional damage. Plunging attack, gathering the amount of Geo, she turns into Geo, falls to the ground, just like every other Catalyst character. So here's kind of how this is going to break down. So our normal attack damage, charge attack damage, damage per Star Jade. So this is going to be kind of the interesting part. So essentially, you're going to use your normal attack. You're going to get this Jade that kind of like circles around Ningguang, right? You're able to get up to 3 of those without Constellations, because at the higher Constellations, you can get up to 7. Yeah, so you can get up to 7 at the higher Constellation levels, but it's not at all necessary that you have to have that to do, you know, high DPS numbers. It just kind of is more icing on the cake, so to speak. You're going to get these Star Jades, and they're going to circle around you, and when you do a charge attack, you'll end up using those Star Jades as additional damage. Essentially, this is how much the Star Jades are going to be doing whenever you do that, and yeah, it's just a ton of damage. Look at our charge attack, 244%. That's pretty nutty. That's pretty nutty. Next, we actually have Jade Screen. So Ningguang creates a Jade Screen out of gold, obsidian, and her great opulence, dealing AoE Geo damage. So the Jade Screen is actually going to be a Geo construct. It is going to literally just sit there on the field. It's going to block opponents' projectiles, and its endurance is based on her max HP. So depending on how you are building Ningguang, you can actually maximize the endurance of this shield literally by just pumping her full of HP. Jade Screen is considered a Geo construct, like we said. It can also be used to block certain attacks, but cannot be climbed. Only one Jade Screen may exist at any one time. So it's not like you can just have multiples of these. It literally is just one, unless you're in this weird co-op situation where you have 4 Ningguangs. That's a whole nother story. So as you can see, inherited HP at level 6 is going to be 66%. So that's actually not too bad. And the skill damage is what we're actually kind of interested in here, because when you summon this thing, it's actually going to do some damage. So dealing AoE Geo damage. So that's actually kind of nice. For our elemental burst, we have Star Shatter. So gathering a great number of gem, Ningguang scatters them all at once, sending homing projectiles at her opponents that deal massive Geo damage. And if Star Shatter is cast when a Jade screen is nearby, that Jade screen will fire additional gem projectiles at the same time. Now it does remove the Jade screen from the field whenever that happens, but that we'll get into that because that's kind of also important. So damage per gem, as you can see there, cooldown is only 12 seconds. Energy cost is only 40. So this is actually what I think makes Ningguang so fun to play, is you can basically fire off her burst pretty much on cooldown. Like you literally are 9 times out of 10 waiting on cooldown, as long as you have something to help her get energy, some kind of battery, so to speak, on your team, whether it's, main character in its Geo form, whether it's, Zhongli, Noelle, whatever you've got, you could just basically fire this off constantly. Onto our Ascension talents, we do have backup plans. So when Ningguang is in possession of Star Jades, her charged attack does not consume stamina. So this is actually really, really nice, because typically whenever you use a charged attack, you're gonna require some kind of stamina to fire it off. But as long as you have actually been doing normal attacks, you're gonna be having these Star Jades, and it's not gonna cost any stamina. So that's pretty cool. Next, we have Strategic Reserve. So a character that passes through the Jade screen will gain a 12% Geo damage bonus for 10 seconds. MiHoYo, I swear, if you do not get your colors straight, these are 2 totally different colors. What are you doing? Now, the big benefit to this is obviously as you pass through it, you're going to get extra Geo bonus damage, and every single thing that you do is Geo based. So yeah, but notice that it does say a character that passes through. So if you are using another Geo character on the field, and Ningguang is your support, like if you're using Zhongli, Albedo, main character, whatever, Noelle, you can throw this on and just get extra Geo damage bonus, which is nice. Last but not least, also, MiHoYo, what is with this spacing? I'm sorry, guys, I'm sorry. Nice. This Jade screen is the same color as this ore veins. So this is called Trove of Marvelous Treasures, displaying the location of nearby ore veins on the minimap. It's an exploration thing. It's great if you're out there farming for extra ore and stuff like that, but it doesn't really help us when we're talking about her kit. But anyways, next let's talk about a couple of constellations here. So at level 1, we have Piercing Fragments. So when a normal attack hits, it deals AoE Geo damage. Instead of just to that one single enemy, it's going to hit multiple enemies if there are multiple nearby, which is kind of cool. Next, we have Shock Effect at level 2. When Jade Screen is shattered, its cooldown will reset and can only occur once every 6 seconds. The thing about Ningguang is, if you don't have any constellations on her, she is fully capable to being a DPS or support. If you have C1, she becomes a very, very solid DPS. If you have C2, she basically becomes like her ultimate self. Like C2, at that point, you basically have like all the stuff in the pot to make this amazing dish, and you can just cook stuff up with Ningguang. You don't have to have her at C2 for her to be a solid DPS though. Don't like think that, oh, I don't have C2, I can't do this. You can. At level 3, Majesty be the Array of Stars is where we basically just gain 3 levels on Star Shatter, which is great. At level 4, Exquisite be the Jade, outshining all beneath. Jade Screen increases nearby characters' elemental resistance by 10%. So that's okay. It's just basically giving you a little bit extra bulk in the team, which is fine. That's kind of, a support thing. At level 5, we have Invincible be the Jade Screen, so Jade Screen's level increases by 3. And we kind of touched on this earlier, but at level 6, Grandeur be the 7 stars. When Star Shatter is used, Ningguang gains 7 Star Jades. Now, the reason that this is important, because if you go back to your charged attack, after you fire off your charged attack, you're going to fire off 7 Star Jades as well. And each one of those Star Jades is going to do a specific amount of damage, and it's just going to tack on a ton more damage. C1, solid DPS. C2, a great DPS, because you can basically just do extra damage. Okay, so essentially the way that the rotation would work at C2, do your attacks, get whatever going, and then you're going to use your Jade Screen. It's going to be up. Once you get your ult, your burst up, you can use your burst. It's going to destroy the Jade Screen, but because we have C2, it's going to reset the cooldown, and you can immediately use it again. So you essentially can just rotate in this huge amount of damage just really quickly, and it works amazingly. And then after that, you get some bulk at level 4, and then at level 6, hey, it's just literally just a ton of free damage. So that's good. And when it comes to weapons, this is I would think that most people would tend to be into DPS Ningguang a little bit more than support. So we're going to go over some DPS stuff first. Weapons as a DPS is going to be kind of pretty straightforward in terms of like, it's kind of just crit rate, crit damage is like your big thing, but don't forget about attack and geo damage and stuff like that. Like that's pretty much going to be the gist of it. But Lost Prayer is basically going to trump everything else until you really get like optimal substats in your artifacts. Memory of Dust can end up edging it out just slightly, but it's going to take a ton of RNG and basically perfect setup to get that to happen. So typically Lost Prayer is going to be what you're going to end up going with. It's going to be top choice if you have it. Well, of course, it's not free to play friendly at all, so you know there's that. Second best option is going to be the Solar Pearl. Now the Solar Pearl is also not free to play friendly because it costs the battle pass. So with that being said, Solar Pearl also though is an amazing weapon here. The only difference between them is essentially the crit rate on Lost Prayer is going to be a little bit higher just as like a base stat. So it's going to end up being 7.2 at level 1 versus Solar Pearl at 6, just a flat 6. So you're going to get some better scaling out of Lost Prayer, and that's kind of why it's better. But both of them basically are just going to be DPS machines. After that, we do need to talk about the Memory of Dust. Now this is the one that's pretty much going to be like top choice if you have optimal like setup in your artifacts, but it's actually going to have attack percent, and it has a really good attack percent starting out at 10.8%. So it's going to scale really good. It's going to increase your shield strengths by 20%, scoring hits on opponents, increases attack by 4% for 8 seconds, max 5 stacks. Now if I'm not mistaken, the way that's going to work is because we end up having Star Jades, those count as independent hits. Someone please correct me if that's wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the way this works. And that can only occur once every 0.3 seconds, and while protected by a shield, this attack increase effect is actually increased by 100%. So that's pretty nutty. Being protected by a shield is pretty easy considering that as a Geo character we can use Crystallize and we can get some shields going and stuff like that. So it's kind of like weird to play around at points, but yeah, it's good. After that, we do have Black Cliff, and we do actually have the Widsith. So both of these we can kind of talk about. Black Cliff also is not very free to play friendly. It does have crit damage as its secondary stat, along with the Widsith also having crit damage as its secondary stat. Both of them are really solid. The Widsith does have that like kind of like RNG element into it where you have different theme songs and stuff like that, but both of those can perform really well. Widsith probably more likely, unless at this point if you've been saving up and just buy the Black Cliff, Widsith is probably more likely to be in your inventory if you just happen to get lucky with the gacha though. Another one that we should talk about is the Eye of Perception. This is actually what I currently use simply because I do have a Widsith, but I haven't powered it up, and I have the Eye of Perception powered up, and I just didn't want to, you know, sink resources into getting the Widsith up to like level 60 because that's where my Eye of Perception currently is. But Eye of Perception is actually pretty interesting here. It does have attack percent on it, and normal and charged attacks have a 50% chance to fire a bolt perception, dealing 240% attack as damage. So essentially when it's talking about attack as damage, that is a entirely another attack going through as if it was its own separate talent, which is super confusing, but essentially it's just going to tack on an extra hit worth of damage based on your attack, and you know it's going to go through the damage formula as if it was a talent in itself. And this bolt can actually bounce between opponents a maximum of 4 times, so that's actually really cool. And that effect can only occur once every 12 seconds. So it's basically just like this AoE, like group a bunch of things together and destroy them all. If you have a character that uses the Veridescent Hunt, if you have Venti, if you have Sucrose, if you have anything that is grouping enemies together, Eye Perception is super fun to play with. Just throwing that out there. Now, some more free-to-play options. Frostbearer is actually one of the new weapons to come out of 1.2 and actually could provide some usefulness. It has attack percent, and hitting an opponent with normal and charged attacks has 60% chance of forming and dropping an Everfrost Icicle. Now, if this is anything like the Snow-Tombed the Claymore, the Snow-Tombed Claymore, that Icicle can't actually miss, so just kind of be wary of that. I think the only reason to really use this weapon is literally for its 4-star stats. It has decent scaling on its base attack, and it has attack percent, so that's fine. It's not the greatest in terms of like weapons because its secondary effect is usually going to be really hard, and you're going to have to play around it more than you would just kind of play around the kit with Ningguang. But it's an option. It's free to play, and it's 4-star, so it's going to give you some decent attack stats to begin with. The Map of Mare actually could be interesting as well. It is a free to play option. It does have elemental mastery, so it's not like ideal, but triggering an elemental reaction grants an 8% elemental damage bonus for 10 seconds, max 2 stacks. So there's that. It's okay. It's free to play, and you can use it until you kind of get into something a little bit better. And then last but not least, we do actually have the Magic Guide. So it also has Elemental Mastery, which again isn't optimal, but increases damage against opponents affected by Hydro or Electro by 12%. So this is one of those that if Ningguang is on the right team, she can do really well with it. But again, this is probably going to be one of those weapons that you use early on and just kind of get out of once you get something a little better. Now, when it comes to artifacts, this is pretty heavily debated. So a lot of people tend to put Noblesse on Ningguang simply so that you can do extra damage with your burst, because her burst actually does do pretty good damage to begin with. But through the testing, which again is linked down in the description, it not really, like, it doesn't actually end up helping you as much. So through the testing that they have done, essentially, long story short, 2-piece Glad for the extra 18%, which again, until you get good stats, you could end up using something like the Braveheart or Resolution of Sojourner. Both of those will do you fine until you get decent Gladiator pieces. And then you would want to go with a 2-piece of the Archaic Petra to give yourself 15 additional Geo damage bonus, 15%. So that's pretty much like best case scenario. There are a couple of different options if you literally just want to use her as like a full-on burst, like damage dealer. Archaic Petra, Noblesse work fine there. I personally have 2-piece Glad and 2-piece Archaic. That's what I went with just because that made the most sense to me. I may have forgotten to mention the substats that you'd want in this particular case as a DPS. Basically, you just want to focus on geo damage as your top priority. Then after that, focus on at least your crit rate and crit damage to be at a 1-to-2 ratio. You're really trying to get at least a 50% on your crit rate, which would mean a rough, estimate of about 100% on your crit damage. And then focus on attack and then HP if you needed to, just so you can get a little bit of extra oomph out of your Jade Screen's endurance. So as a DPS, when leveling up your talents, typically the easiest thing to go with here is going to be your normal attack. Always do that first. You're going to be using it the most often. Then after that, more than likely, this is going to net you more by going with your burst second. It's going to end up giving you more damage in the long haul because, again, this being able to get into this thing so quickly and use it so often is what's going to net you high DPS. And then last but not least, don't forget this one. I would say Star Shatter is like 51% of the time going to be what you would want to go with over Jade Screen, but try to level them up as closely as you can. But if you had to choose one or the other, go with Star Shatter first. Now, as a support on Ningguang for weapons, Prototype Amber actually makes a huge bit of sense here. So Prototype Amber is going to have HP as its secondary stat, and it's going to be craftable, which is amazing to begin with, but it also is going to help keep your Jade Screen up longer and help you basically keep that up. And especially if you have your Ascension talents where you can get more damage by going through it, then your Geo main carry, if that's the way you're building your team, is going to be able to do more damage with that. Being that shield can stay up longer, it's going to protect more, stuff like that is good. You never want to throw down a Jade Screen and see it just immediately disappear because it just had no endurance. Its special ability is using a elemental burst, regenerates 4 energy every 2 seconds for 6 seconds, and all party members will regenerate 4% HP every 2 seconds for this duration. So that's nice. We can't forget about Thrilling Tales of Dragon. This one is going to be pretty nice as well. It's going to have HP, so it also kind of goes along with the Jade Screen theory, having that up as much as possible. But when switching characters, the new character taking the field has their attack increased by 24% for 10 seconds. And this effect can only occur once every 20 seconds. And that's at refinement level 1. That's pretty good. At level 5, refinement level 5, 48% for 10 seconds. Yeah, that's crazy. The Widsith also could be used as a support weapon here as well, simply because it could set you up to be one of those burst supports, literally just hopping in and, you know, getting the right theme song and then doing your burst and doing a ton of damage that way, and then hopping back out to allow your main carry to do more damage. It could work. It's actually really good. And then we could also mention Sacrificial Fragments. It's okay. It has Elemental Mastery. I'm not a huge fan of Elemental Mastery on Geo characters. I understand that it helps with the shields and stuff, but essentially it's kind of mediocre for me personally. After damaging an opponent with an elemental skill, the skill has 40% chance to end its own cooldown. It can only occur once every 30 seconds. I'm not 100% sure if that conflicts with our C2 or not. It possibly could, but I'm not sure. Apparently some people do have some success out of it, although it's not my favorite choice out of the lot. Now, as a support, your artifacts are going to be kind of simple here. So a full 4 set of the Archaic Petra, not only going to give you 15% geo damage bonus, but add a 4-piece upon obtaining an elemental shard created through a crystallized reaction. All party members gain a 35% damage bonus for that particular element for 10 seconds, and only one form of elemental damage bonus can be gained at any manner of time. So essentially, as long as you end up getting a good rotation on your crystallize and you pick up the right elements with your main carry doing whatever elemental damage it is, there you go. It can do extra damage that way. So that's actually really good. One thing that you could also consider is running a couple of the exile sets. Now you could end up running a full 4-piece of this if you just want to. You could mix and match this, of course, with anything in the list here with extra energy recharge. It's going to help you get to that burst even faster, especially if you don't have C2 to help you kind of like generate a ton of energy with your Jade screens. This will definitely help you out until you get to that point. But the other obvious, pretty much probably what most people are going to run, is the full 4-piece of the Noblesse, or like I said, you can 2-piece it with Exile, 2-piece of Noblesse, however you want to do it. But using an elemental burst increases all party members' attack by 20% for 12 seconds, and you get an elemental burst damage of plus 20% if you're only using the 2-piece. So pretty nice. Would you look at that? I forgot on the support one as well. Anyway, so top substat kind of prioritizing here is going to be energy recharge. Even if you need to go with a energy recharge timepiece, energy recharge is going to be nice on Ningguang as a support, simply to help you just get into that burst even quicker. HP, so your Jade screen can have as much HP as possible for the endurance, so it stays on the field longer and takes more damage. Elemental mastery to help your shields become stronger, and of course, you know, attack, because everything goes off of attack. Now for the talents as a support, Star Shatter makes the most sense to go with here, because you're pretty much just using her as a burst support. You just want to get that burst off as often as possible, especially since our numbers work in that favor. Jade screen would make the most sense after that, and then last but not least, if you even wanted to power up normal attack, it's going to be good. Now, we get to go use Ningguang. Now I will preface this with I am not a Ningguang main. I am not amazing using her, but I do have a lot of fun playing her. She was actually one of the first characters that I tried to power up and wanted to use. Here's going to be the stats that I currently have on my Ningguang. These aren't amazing by any means. This is kind of what I have and what I can kind of show you, but you can kind of see 49 at 84%, not amazing, but it works very well for me even at world level 7. That's pretty good. Her energy recharge is actually pretty good, and then 73.6% on the geo damage bonus. That's pretty nice. She has 13 on attack, so yeah. So I actually need to get some more farming done on the Cryo Regisfine here, not the event one. I'm so tired of that event one. So we're just gonna hop down here and I'll show you a couple things. So as usual, you can see that's what the I can't even think. That's what the plunging attack looks like, and we're just gonna go ahead and break this really quick. So if we pop our Jade screen, you can see it's gonna do the damage, 366 there, and then 391. So you can see we're getting a little bit of a damage bonus, and we can do the charge attack, and you can see it's just doing extra damage. Now there is an optimal pattern for this. I'm not great at it, but essentially if you just do, I don't know, yep, that goes through that. Okay. So we're going to break this again really quick, and we're going to do Jade Screen. So we'll do this, some damage there. I'm going to run through this, and then we'll hit our Q. You can see it does remove the Jade Screen, but because of C2, we can just summon it right back. And then we can do our pattern here. It's going to be a normal attack, and charged attack. Now there is also another little bit of a tech you can do. As you're attacking with her, if you just hold W, or if you hold forward rather, she's going to be doing a little bit of like a little walk, and it will actually animation cancel a little bit of her her like delay that happens when you auto attack with her, so you can get out a little bit of extra damage that way. Now again, there's going to be a lot of more in-depth information on how to use her in those guides in the description. I would highly recommend checking that out if you are trying to seriously main Ningguang. So we'll just, you know, do some damage here. Let's see what she can do. And you can see those Jade Screens. They can, if you try to summon them on something that doesn't allow it to like fully bloom, it will just die like that. But as you can see, that's pretty good. I mean, she's hitting like 4,100 on a charged attack, which isn't bad at all. All right, so let's pop this Jade Screen. Let's run through it, and we'll do this. And you can see that does a large chunk of damage. And she can just kind of ranged attack, which is nice. And there you go. I mean, dude, she's level 60 and she's taken on... What level are these guys? Like 91 at my world link? I don't know. It's in there. But that's pretty freaking good. And look at that. Look at that crap. I got nothing out of that. But anyways, that's pretty much Ningguang, guys. She is super, super fun to play. She's probably one of the funner 4-stars to play. It just, in my opinion, I really wanted her to be a DPS for my setup, just because I like using her as more of a DPS than a support. But like I said, you can kind of use her in both regards if you really wanted to. So that's pretty much it. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed Ningguang today. If you have her built, I've seen some pretty nutty stuff, especially if you go into the Discord server for the Ningguang mains. They have like an entire channel dedicated to just nutty damage. I saw a guy do the event, the Regisfine, that's in the event for this one. I saw him do it in 50, I think it was either 50 seconds flat or 58 seconds, I can't remember. But it was basically just a Ningguang showcase. That's like all he did. He was using Ningguang. It was pretty freaking cool. But yeah. So that's going to be it. I will end up going and posting another poll after we throw this one up. And it will include a 5-star. I don't know if I want to do Diluc or if we want to do Zhongli. I don't have Zhongli technically ascended yet. And I had to kind of forfeit some materials to get Ningguang because she was next. So for that sole reason, we're probably just going to go with Diluc next. So we'll end up going Diluc, and then after that, we'll throw everybody in that was already on the poll before. So it'll be Bennett, Zhangling, and I don't remember who else. But so thank you guys for hanging out. Thanks so much for watching, and see you later. Major shout out to Cherry Blue, who is a YouTube member.